physics major and studio art minor, and I'm going to talk about my work that I've been doing as part of the Khan seminar. And my title for my presentation is Poetry, Printmaking, and the Universe. And I'm going to first break the title down, talk about what each of the pieces mean. So by the reference to the universe, I'm going to talk about how cosmology as a science became part of my career at Smith, and also informs a lot of the perspectives that I have on the different classes that I take or the work that I do. And poetry comes from the classical Urdu poetry that my mother has been sharing with me. And printmaking is the classes that I've taken at Smith as a studio art minor. So I'm going to talk about those first separately, and then I'll bring them together, or try to, and that's a continual process. That's basically what I have been doing for my Khan seminar, trying to bring them together and understanding how they intersect or don't. And then, so that includes giving examples of some couplets in Urdu poetry, and as well as examples of my work that I've been doing as part of my printmaking classes. And then I'll conclude. So what is cosmology? Cosmology is the science of the evolution and the beginning of the universe. And my work, or what I am particularly interested in, is the beginning of the universe. That's where the research that I've been doing lies. And the way I came across cosmology was the summer after my first year, when I worked with Professor Felder on a project, and since then I have been consistently working in the field. So can cosmology blow our minds? I think so, and the reason is because our universe is 13.8 billion years old. That's a really, really, really long time. And it's huge. It's almost 100 billion light years across. And here we are on one tiny planet, one species in one solar system, in one galaxy among trillions and zillions of others. And the attempt to try and understand something that is so huge, sitting here on one planet, is in itself mind-blowing. That the fact that we know as much as we do is also amazing, but there's a whole lot that we do not know. And I think just working towards understanding something so intangible and unintelligible is also a very, I think it's an attempt which is very, very valuable. And Urdu poetry, so my mother started sharing couplets with me over the last summer, and a theme that usually comes up a lot in Urdu poetry is that the poet is the lover or the ashik who is eternally yearning for the mehboob or the beloved, and the beloved can be the divine beloved or the earthly beloved. And this theme comes up a lot. There's a lot of repetition, and poets try and bring out this theme in their poetry by stating it differently or restating the problem and the enigma. So I think cosmology and Urdu poetry sort of began to intersect for me in terms of concepts that come up where you're trying to understand something that is not really easy to grasp, or you're trying to reach something that is pretty much unattainable. So that's how the project for my Khan began. And then printmaking came in more recently when I started taking woodcut printmaking with Professor Ryan this semester. And it's the most recent addition to my Khan project. And I also took intaglio printmaking my first year. In printmaking, process becomes immensely important, and even though the goal seems relatively more achievable, the final product that we're working towards is still quite removed from you. And I highlighted the word seems because yes, you have a final product at the end, but it's usually because the project is due tomorrow. But the point I want to make is that while we're working on the project, we have in view a very idealized image of what we might want to attain, and it never really gets there. It's always settling for something less because you have to turn in something. But so the point is that it could continue and turn into something more, but you never really get there. So I think that's how I would explain how the three things start coming together for me. So what I observed in all three of these is that there's a quest for something that is a goal that is really not well defined. And there's also resolution through repetition. There's a lot of things a similar process that we repeat in all three of these to try and understand something. And in cosmology, I see that when cosmologists are trying to make new models all the time, which are often only slightly different from what has been done earlier, but it's sort of redoing the thing in a different way to understand something a little more or a little better. And in poetry, as I mentioned, the themes come up again and again. So repetition is an important part of both of those things. And through printmaking, I try and express that, which I'll talk about in the first project that I did in my class. So, and the third thing is that we're struggling with the unknown a lot in all of these three things. There's a lot of time and effort spent in the dark, and you don't know where you're going, you don't know what you'll end up with. So those are the three main things that I saw in the three different things that I've been working on. So I thought I'd give a few examples of couplets from Urdu poetry that sort of subtly bring out these things that I've been talking about. The first one is दहर जुज़ जलवाए यक्ताई ये माशूक नहीं हम कहाँ होते अगर हुस्न ना होता खुद भी. That loosely and badly translates to the world is nothing but the sole splendor of the beloved. Where would I be were it not for beauty's vanity? है कायनात को हरकत तेरे ज़ौक़ से पर तब से आफ़ताब के ज़र्रे में जान है. That translates to the universe evolves because of your love. Like the rays of the sun give life to a dust particle. ना था कुछ तो खुदा था, कुछ ना होता तो खुदा होता. डुबोया मुझको होने ने, ना होता मैं तो क्या होता. God existed in nothingness. If there would have been nothing, God would have been. My being has destroyed me. What could I have been had I not existed? So, in the third one, I think it's most prominent where there's an emphasis on separation because of existence. And we exist to live and work towards some kind of union or understanding of a larger power or being or the beloved. And in the first and the second couplets, I think what comes out for me is that we live to observe the superiority of the beloved. And so there's this emphasis on how we are separate from the beloved, but there's this constant working towards coming together with the beloved. So the printmaking class that I'm taking has been sort of like an outlet for for expressing my thoughts and my thought processes about cosmology and poetry. So the first project that I did, this is not a very good picture of it, but there are Urdu couplets written all over this cracked sort of surface. And I think what I was trying to get at was the struggle with acquiring the language. Urdu is not something that I fluently read and write, and understanding the couplets is also a very difficult process for me, and my mother helps me a lot. So that is what I was trying to get at through the first part of my first project. And then in the second one, this is a horizontal photograph of that. I repeated the block, printed it again and again. This is 5 iterations of the same block that I showed earlier. And then I cut apart the pieces and put them together in different ways. So that was, again, sort of trying to deal with how to resolve something by putting it together in different ways. And doing it again and again might bring it to some kind of resolution. In the third project, what I did was I worked with one couplet, and that is आते हैं गैब से ये मज़ामीन ख्याल में गालिब सरीर खामा नवाए सरोश है. These thoughts come from a mysterious source. The sound of my pen is the voice of the divine. And what is important for me in this couplet is that the doer is giving up agency or individuality and becoming more of a channel or a vessel for something divine to be expressed. So that is what I worked with, and I made a kind of a bookmark, but working with the same couplet and printing it again and again. So the way I've tried to connect these 3 realms is that cosmology was the first thing that I came across, and then I encountered Urdu poetry, and cosmology informs a lot of the perspectives and the thought processes that happen when I'm interpreting couplets from Urdu poetry. And then poetry, I use that in my work in printmaking. And although cosmology doesn't necessarily show up in my prints, it's more like the process of working in both fields is similar for me, because it's a lot of small discoveries along the way, which really slightly intersperse as time spent in a lot of struggle and stress, but it's very rewarding when I come across little pieces of progress, or oh, that turned out well, or something like that. And I think that is how these two connect for me. So that was all, and I would like to thank my mother, who has really been my guide and inspiration for this project, and my printmaking professor, who's here, my physics mentor, Professor Gary Felder, the Khan, and all of those people at the Khan who helped me, and my family. And thank you for listening, and I'd be happy to take questions.